I won't tell you also that I went to the bar next door. I thought it was in there, but you look a lot friendlier than the guys that were next door. So I'm glad to be stood here and not there. Martin Honeywood, I'm currently Transformation and Insight Director at Circle Housing. I've been in the housing sector for 20-something. We don't talk about it after 20 years, do we? Kind of stop there. Mainly working in areas of change, so whether it's been IT or business or lean thinking, all of those things that we've been through over the years, jumping to either regulator changes to inspections. Remember those when we used to do those? Chloe's, we love Chloe's. And now we've got some new challenges. So tonight I just wanted to talk about some of the challenges. Try to make it kind of organisationally agnostic, really. Just wanted to talk about transformation generally, but obviously we draw on a lot of experience that I've had across the place. I'm probably talking to people that know all this stuff, so I'm probably going to tell you lots of things you already know, so apologies for that now, but hopefully we can get into a bit of a discussion afterwards and pull out some things that may be useful for the challenges you're facing. I think we all recognise where we're at, in particular the financial stretch that we've got at the moment. I think usually with regulation and things coming up, we get to hear the gossip, don't we? We get to know what's coming. But I really think that the rent reduction caught us out, actually. I'm not sure many of us were prepared for that, and we certainly didn't see it coming. I've heard some rumours about the fact that the government didn't see it coming either. They just threw it in at the last minute, but I wouldn't want to comment on that. But we do face some really challenging times, and in some ways, actually, the way we deliver housing and the things that we do won't ever be the same again, potentially. And I think we're in for a lot of years of change and transformation and difficulties with the environment we've got. We're not very popular housing associations, are we? Don't really like us very much. So we've got a lot to do, but we've got a lot of customers that are vulnerable, that really rely on us as well. So we really have that difficulty of maintaining that commercial head, but that social heart. And I think it's one of the biggest challenges that we face at the moment at this time. And you've heard some of the announcements and the rhetoric and all of that, and is it the end and that's it, we can't do affordable housing, and some people have been really upfront about that and saying, no, that's the end of it, we can't afford that anymore. And again, these are massive challenges for us, and I know at Circle we are really, our board were passionate in saying, we want to protect our social purpose. How are you going to do that? So thanks for that, we'll work that out. But these are real challenges that we face, where we're here for a purpose. Many of these things are built on a real social purpose of looking after the most vulnerable, the most needy, and not the Benefit Street version, but actually the reality that we see every day as well. And it's difficult. It's difficult in the current environment. So rent reduction, I don't know what it's done to your books. We're talking about probably £50 million over 4 years, and I don't think that's unusual in some areas, but it will depend on where you're at. And again, depending on how you've operated in the past, the sorts of things you deliver, that may be a massive challenge. It may be a small challenge because surpluses in the way you operate said actually we can work this through over a number of years. Who thinks the rents will go back up after 4 years? It's not likely, is it? Let's be honest. So we've got a lot of work to do. We've got to keep challenged. But also we could say, if we're really honest, we've had it good for quite a few years too, haven't we? And if we'd have been a little bit wiser, we probably wouldn't have done our business plans with it going up every year and perhaps thought about that slightly differently. But that is a massive impact, and we've really got to work that through in the years ahead. Benefit cap as well, and a lot of universal credit, all the other things coming through. What's that going to do to the amount of contact we're going to have in our organisations and how we manage that contact? What's it going to do with our rent arrears and all of these sorts of things, challenges, some of which we're seeing played out, some of which is still unknown. So we're still having to look at future models and say, what does that mean for us? Right to buy challenges, again, I think we're all trying to embrace it. Okay, it's a great thing, but if you've got a social purpose and you really want to maintain your discounted rented stock, then every time you sell something, you've got to build another one. And again, that's a massive challenge. How do you do that in the current climate? And it's something we can talk about a bit more. And then just seeing across the sector, massive investment at the moment with IT in particular. And again, I'll put up a scary slide of lots of people doing lots of things and then don't tell anyone I told you. But there's a lot of investment going in. But at a time when money is really tight and we're looking to really save and deliver the services we want to for those in need, actually we're having to spend a heck of a lot of money as well to get ourselves into a position to make a difference. And we'll see why that is. So, I just thought we'd start, where can we target? really interesting that what a lot of organisations forget, and it's something we were really conscious of, and in a few organisations I've been in, fortunate enough to be able to start in this position, is you've got to go back to the top. Is your vision actually does it still stack up in the current climate? Quite often you have these fantastic visions, strategic priorities, lots of great missions and things like that, and then actually you look at your business plan and say, we can't deliver it. But we'll just do a little bit of, we'll just talk the rhetoric perhaps. We had at Circle, we have a fantastic mission of enhancing life chances, and everybody was right behind that, saying we want to enhance the life chances of our customers. And they'd walk around the organisation and say, what does that mean? And they'd go, well, it's really good. Yeah, but what does it mean? And actually, we had to really spend a long time going back to our vision and say, well, how do we enhance the life chances of our customers in a context where money's now really tight? What can we really do to make a difference? And so starting at the top and keeping that golden thread through the organisation so that every individual knows why we're making that change, understands the rationale, but actually can still see the outcome and the vision at the end of it. Absolutely critical, I think, to success in transformation. The other thing, and I know you know this, but there's lots of stats that prove it, you need that buy-in from the very, very top if you're going to embark on transformation. Yeah, I heard that sigh. We've all been there. But the stats itself prove it. ProSide do a lot of this kind of thing where they take the top global companies and they put lots of change management stats. If you haven't paid the £394 for the book that you get to produce these things, it's not worth it. No, it's really worth it. It's great. But the evidence is there, time and time again. You must have the leadership at the top of the organisation, and certainly sponsors for the programme that will take you through, because people get very jittery along the way. So the few rules that really back that up. Courage is the first thing. You need courage because at these times when, as I say, transformation is such a key deliverable, we have to do it. Now we have a burning platform that we've never had before. We really need to do it. There's a lot of things that can knock you sideways, and believe me, at Circle we've had all of them, mostly in the last 12 months. It's been really interesting to unpack some of that, but things from the HCA, things around our services, things like merger, all of these things come along. But if you've got a vision and you've got a purpose and a transformation program that you know gives you the outcomes you need the courage to see that through. And you need to be very strong in that, so your rationale and your commitment needs to be there all the time. Capacity. We all carry on with our day job while we do all this change, don't we? And we ask people to quick layer things. And again, we have to be careful with that. And I know that in a few organisations we've tried to do this with really fantastically hard-working, well-meaning people. But sometimes you need to just step back and go, we need some support. And this is where that investment comes in as well. And I've worked with a couple of the big four consultancies, and you look at their prices and it's very, very scary. But you look at the outcomes and the pace they can deliver, and you start to say, do you know what, there may be a strong case for this. So again, and there's not one model to fit everybody. Everybody's got to look at their own plans and their own purpose and say, is it right for us? But I would always say, check your capacity, because you can either burn people out or you can burn the organisation out if you're taking on too much change at once. That links to capability, of course. Have you got the right skills? And what you might have is the right skills in the organisation for how you operate today, but have you got the right skills for how you want to operate tomorrow? And particularly with the digital agenda, which I'd like to talk about a little bit, you may not have everybody sat around. So again, what are you doing to prepare for the future? Sometimes it's about bringing in that capability early. And again, do we want to spend money that we can't really use today? Well, sometimes we have to be able to save that money tomorrow. So that investment is really, really critical. And then I could spend an hour talking about connectivity, but Steve will kill me because he wants to do his thing afterwards. Just joining things together across the organisation, not bolting a transformation program on the side, not letting it align to what you have to deliver on a day-to-day basis. All of those sorts of things are absolutely critical. And contact with your staff, the leadership, all of those management boards, and if you've got partner boards. We have 11 boards at Circle Housing at the moment. It's a very entertaining quarter going around the country looking after those guys. But we have to do it all the time. We have to keep communicating, and communication failure is probably, as you probably know if you see Cotter and all the other change models, is probably the biggest issue, if you like, in transformation. It's the cause of failure more than any other, that people don't communicate effectively. So you can't talk too much. You've got to keep saying it, and we have this thing that we've learnt, that if you leave any gap at all, The rumour mill's really great for filling that gap. It really does help you out. No, it really doesn't. And I've been in organisations where they say, I know we'll have a rumour mill board where we can put them all out there. And it's like, actually, that's not really the right way to do it. What you really want to do is not leave the gap in the first place. Let's tell people, let's be open and honest and take them on the journey. And they'll get through that change curve which everybody goes through. Okay. How you communicate, what you communicate and the way you do it is really important as well. And we were going to do a little test with you. Okay. So if you've got a piece of paper and a pen, you need it right now. If you don't, this is really boring, okay? So you'll have to do it in your head. But if you haven't got a piece of paper, it'll only take you two minutes most, I promise you. But you can probably do it on your phone these days, I don't know.
Have we got seconds to get paper and pen?
If you really want to, it's really not, it's fantastic. It's unbelievable, yeah. Yeah.
So we're going to count Gabby down.
Okay, if you can do it within 1 minute. So I guarantee that you won't remember anything else tonight, but you'll remember this, okay? This will be the only thing you do. And if you've seen it before, I apologise now. I think you're going to be so disappointed after all this. It's really not worth that much. Perfect. Fantastic. Yeah, I know, I'm really worried now. Okay, so having created chaos for very, very little, I'll just explain why I thought it, yeah, I know. I'll explain why I thought it was a good idea, and then we can talk about it afterwards. This is something I do with the teams a lot, with our exec teams, with the boards, with the staff, because so often we think we're communicating. We genuinely think we're doing a good job, and quite often, I really don't want to touch that, quite often we feel like we've done everything we can. We've told everybody everything, and still things can go wrong. So we're just going to do a quick test to see how great you guys are, and I'm showing you will. So that's all you've got to do is draw a large square. So that was easy. So you've all done that? Yeah? Great stuff. Okay, so just draw a smaller square inside the first square. Really simple. Quick, don't take too long over it. Let's do it. Okay, draw a rectangle inside the first square, not the smaller square, the first square. Okay, rectangle inside the, just make sure we're all clear on what we're doing. Good, we've done that, and then draw 3 other squares in the main square. Just, put 3 squares in.
Which is the main square?
Which is the first square?
The first square.
Yeah, call that the main square.
Draw 3 other squares.
Yeah, 3 squares inside the main square. Okay, you got that? And then why don't you draw a triangle attached to the square? All you people who... Sorry?
Which square?
Oh, let's make it the main square.
The main square?
Yeah, so just a triangle attached to that. Yeah, so we've all done that. Fantastic. So we've all followed the same instructions. We all know what we've done. Just a few of you just wave a bit of paper around.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good. You just had to draw a house. Not bad, not bad. That's still pretty good. Okay. So we do have a few artists here, which is excellent, like it. It's a really silly exercise, but I think it illustrates the point. You can see what happens. We're all in the same room. We're all hearing the same things, but what do? We translate it very differently. And we follow instructions thinking we're doing the right thing. That can be a nightmare in transformation. And so being that really clear, really concise, and making sure that you check and recheck, continuously communicating, absolutely key to success. Something else we use, and this is another model from ProSci, which actually we find really effective. And so this is 3 teams, obviously rename them. We go through this check every now and again on our business change to say, how are we doing, and are we able to move on to literally the next stage of change because we know we've captured people. And what it is you're just literally asking people some questions around awareness of what's happening, for example. And the way this works, you take them through a stage of questions, they fill in these grids, and these teams will give you these answers. Anything below a 3 for a stage of change means you can't move on because they haven't captured it yet. So the first stage is awareness. Yeah. So what happens is, if you find out that your teams that you're trying to make change with, and it could be as large or as small as you want, if they're not aware of the change, the rationale, why you're doing it, you're not going to get the next stage, which is the desire. And you need the desire because you need the people on the ground with you all the way through this. Even when change is tough, you still get those that can be your ambassadors that can really help you through. If you lose that up front, you can't move on. It's a really, really powerful test. Now, a lot of people test it and go, yeah, we haven't quite got it, but we'll carry on and then we'll come back to that. And we've all been there because the pace of change and the things we need to do is really, really difficult. But it's a great way to test yourself. It's just a small survey, and there's some prescriptive surveys that you can test this. But basically, if you get the awareness right up front, you get the desire, you get the buy-in, you get the understanding, you get people saying, well, I don't like it, but you know what, I understand it, I get it. Desire comes. With the desire comes the knowledge. People want to embrace then what it is. What does it mean for me? How will I operate? What does this mean, this new technology, this new process, this new way of working? All of those things. You start to share that knowledge and people sort of embrace that. And of course, what does that do? That makes people keen to actually get the ability. And so you accelerate the ability. And like all change, it needs reinforcing because it's really easy for people to find workarounds and go back to the way they used to work. And so again, keeping doing that, reinforcing and making sure that we have a culture that is really fit for the change that we're trying to implement. And that's so important as well. Culture just comes all the way through this, and it's just a simple way to do that.
I'm just going to comment that team battle style seemed to be going really well and then sort of died at the end.
It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, they did. Yeah, they thought they had the ability. That was the problem. Yeah.
They restructured that.
Yeah. Yeah, it might not be perfect.
They'd overcommitted.
Right, let's move on. You get the principle, barrier points. If you're not there first of all, and that's why communication is such a pivotal key for those things. So what are the opportunities? Again, we could talk all night about this, just some of the ones we found in recent things. Obviously responding to the external environment. How are we going to keep our affordable stock? What are we going to do with right to buy? What is our development strategy, which we're having to revisit? What's our asset management strategy that we now need to look at? What does the 4 years after this 4 years look like? All of those sorts of things. So the strategic sort of visioning around your properties. How do you make the best use of that massive asset base that you have? I think at one point, Circle looked at, if we put this in an estate agent window, it would be worth 11 billion. You've got a rich asset in our pockets there, something. You know, can we sell off the higher value stock to help us build some of those other, those more affordable stock elsewhere sometimes? London's a real challenge, you know. Market rent, shared ownership. Is shared ownership affordable? We're having quite a discussion about that at the moment. It's quite interesting. How do you, can right to buy, we were talking outside, can right to buy staircase people into ownership? Do we want everyone in ownership? Is that the right thing? We talk about social mobility, and then in some circles people say that's a dreadful thing. You can't have social mobility. Why should everybody be like that? So it's a real battle for us, but I think looking at the strategic with what we do with our property is absolutely critical. Then of course rationalising internally, you know, a Circle I'm talking about here, over 200 office locations we had just around the country. We didn't know we had half of them. No, we did, but there was like, you know, a few desks in a church hall in some places. Over 5,000 suppliers. If you don't get hold of that procurement piece and your supplier network, it's very quickly somebody adds another one in that department and someone adds another one before you know it. You've got quite a few people doing the same thing, and we don't rationalise that and get the economies of scale that can really make a difference. 278 IT systems. That was includes those spreadsheets that no one can live without. You know, we've all got them. But actually, these were day-to-day operational systems across the group. We're going down to 6. Just to give you a feel of the size of the change, yeah? 50% desk occupancy. So we've now moved into everybody in the organisation, over 2,000 people are now agile, so they're all agile workers. And you know, we've really reduced the footprint of that 18 offices going down to 6, and really moving that through. Again, massive culture piece. That's a real test for your culture, going agile working. And it's amazing the people that still come back and get out their plot and their picture and then put it on their hot desk and then plaque it all. we lose an hour a day productivity now getting the stuff out and putting it away. But hey, we're all agile. Duplication, again, in large groups and probably in lots of organisations and organisations like yourself, things creep into areas. You know, we need to add a post, we need to add something, and actually what we do is we duplicate a lot of the things we do, and there's a real opportunity to rationalise that. And for us, we found that actually we had a lot of enabling services in the back office, if you like, and with a ratio of 3 people for every 1 person that had customer contact. It doesn't feel right in an organisation that's there for the customer. We talk about putting customers at the heart. That's the wrong ratio. So again, real mission to change that. I just putting this up. I don't expect you to read that or anything, but just one thing we did that we found really useful was there's a kind of typical footprint of a common housing sort of business capability, and we just went out to all the teams and say, tell us what you do around all these things. And it's not like a time and motion study, but a really quick, just give us a feel for what you do. We had HR staff all over the group. We had IT staff all over the group. We had finance people everywhere. And then you can see what the scale is of change that you actually can realistically make when you're looking at rationalising. And now I know that's about people and that's difficult, but the reality is with this, the cuts that we need to be looking at, and it is cuts in reality, then this sort of exercise can be very, very helpful. So what do we do from there? Well, we define our principles and our parameters. What is it that we are trying to build, and what are the outcomes we're going to look for? What are the way that we want to operate? So some things are just non-negotiable in our principles about what we're going to do as an organisation. And the parameters within that are things like spans of control. It may be about, let's say, IT systems, the way we're going to operate. One of the things we will talk about in a minute is about digital by default for staff. That's where we're going. So that's one of our principles, one of our parameters. Then, as I say, using that business model, consolidate, bring people together under a single management, rationalise that down so you can deliver the service effectively, and of course you improve that as the technology comes along. So a massive piece around getting rid of your duplication across the piece and streamlining your processes. Streamline your processes again for your digital change. So again, as digital becomes more and more, and it's a demand now, it's not one of those things that we thought was a good idea. Actually, people want it, and I'll show you why they want it in a moment. But you know, and your process, whatever you design today, will change again tomorrow as the technology is moving through, and it is moving through all of the organisations. Be clear about your customer offer is another thing. We've had to look really hard about what do we want to do, and actually what are we not going to do any longer. Not because it's not helpful to our customers, but actually there's people out there who can do it better. And if they can do it better and they can do it cheaper, why would we want to bring that in-house and cost us money? So alongside that goes your stop, start, continue list. Because there'll be new things that you're starting, say something particularly around the digital thing that you perhaps don't do now. There'll be things that you just won't be able to do anymore because you haven't got the funding or the world's just moved on. But there's a lot of things that's your bread and butter services, and you won't want to give those up. So just having a conscious look through that, you'll find amazing things that you can change by doing that. So the digital equation, and I keep mentioning it because I just think it's such a big piece, and we did this work around cost and how we are now compared to how we want to be. And I think this is, across the sector in many ways. But typically telephone, email, post is how we communicate face-to-face, of course. And then there's a little bit of web in a lot of organisations, some more than others. But when you compare sort of post email and face-to-face sort of, in the tens and 20s and 40s of pounds down to a sort of mobile app sort of transaction at 15p, you can see the attraction. And obviously, again, culturally for our customers, it's something that, you have to make a physical shift. You have to want to shift things from what is traditional service, and that's not easy all the time. However, so this does make sense, trust me, okay. So traditional consumers, which are people who don't do digital, don't do technology, okay, are the sort of orangey line. And you can see where we are now in the middle of that. Those people are actually on the decline. And we're getting to a point now where the sort of the adopters, if you like, and the converters, which is us, my age, okay, not us, us. You know, we learned to program the video. We thought we really had it sorted, and now, you know, everything's in your pocket, isn't it, on your phone? How many people still go to their branch for banking? You do, brilliant. So, it's always the young ones. Okay.
Martin, you should remember them.
I do. The thing is, we are converts. We're picking up the technology, we're using it, and again, just in the next few years, we're going to be in the minority too, because actually the digital natives, in terms of those that have been born with this technology, expect everything to be operating in that way, apart from the odd exceptions that sit over there. But generally speaking, people really are just expecting us to have exactly the same functions and facilities as the rest of the people they interact with. And by, you know, literally around the corner, that's going to be the majority. So 2020 is not that far away, and everybody will be saying, where is it? Where's your app? Where's this service? Where's that?
Just don't recruit them.
Yeah, keep away from them. So why would you do that in a social environment where you've got a lot of vulnerable people that you perhaps say, you know, perhaps can't embrace that technology? Well, first of all, actually the stats don't bear that out. People do embrace it. So that's the first thing to recognise. We had, in one organisation, we were told we can't do anything for the internet because nobody has a phone line in their home, but they all had 3 mobile phones in their house. You know, so when you actually find out about the demographics of your people, it might surprise you. The reason we can do it is because all of that low complexity, high volume type activity, the people that don't want you in their face all the time, just want to have their service and go away again, actually you can do it at the lowest cost, which we just illustrated earlier. We can do that all online. We can do that at point of contact. We can do it really quickly, and we can do it 24/7 all throughout the year. When you get into multidisciplinary things, then things start to shrink a bit, and then you think you might have more complex, and then you might need a little bit more, so that might be a handoff, but you can still initiate that from a digital point. And what it allows you to do is really focus your resources at the other end, where you've got high complex need. Target your resources where it's needed most, and that's got to be a better use of all of our money in that way, of those that are really vulnerable, those that really need the service, those that really need that face-to-face contact. You're never going to get away from them on the ground service. We would never suggest you would. But actually what you can do is really target to those who need it most. It makes perfect sense. It makes it financially right. And this is one of those other slides that I won't dwell on, but just to say, how do you get there? Well, there's lots of models technology-wise. If anyone wants to talk about technology, I can bore you with it later, but you can tactically fix all of your existing systems. You can kind of do a best of breed on lots of things and stick them together. Good luck with that integration. It's never easy. More and more people are starting to move with a mix, a hybrid of a large system like CRM, ERP in particular, and then some of their own systems as well. Or you can have the monolithic, put all your eggs in the SAP basket and hope it works. No, I'm being unkind. It's not fair. I'll flash this up very quickly. A lot of people are making those choices. There's no right or wrong answer, but there's a lot of investment in technology across the sector. Okay. This is where we're going. So we are in the midst of implementing CRM at the moment. We are also, because we like to do everything at once, we're doing ERP at the same time. We are keeping some of our existing systems. We're changing our whole data and reporting and enterprise content management all at the same time. Okay, so it's a hybrid thing. So we haven't gone for one single supplier, one single solution, but I can tell you the CRM and ERP are both Microsoft Dynamics. So in integration terms, really nice and smooth in that. But yeah, so again, if anybody wants to talk about that, we can talk about that as well. Other areas of focus, I mentioned agile working, so it's a real test of change for people both culturally, so if you're really serious about where you're trying to go in terms of your transformation, massive opportunity to save money at the same time. And you actually find that when staff, when they start to realise it and embrace it, they make their own choices about how to operate. And it's so much more efficient and effective. We've had some fantastic case studies where individuals have just worked differently because they've seen the opportunity, and the productivity has just rocketed. We've got offices that suddenly a whole floor emptied out, no one was there anymore, but actually they were with customers in the home doing things which were really important. So, so it's been great, a real test for us, and we kind of accelerated that up front to help some of the other digital and cultural changes we needed. I mentioned maximising our capital assets. Again, it's not my area of expertise, but there's a lot of people who should brands that are working on that through at the moment, and our business plans are getting very complex about what we do with all of that asset that we've got. Rationalising suppliers, again, we've got to get those economies of scale. Sticking to our knitting, all I mean by that is really just knowing what our core services are. Because quite often we bolt things on again and they seem great, but actually in a difficult time, you might have to have a difficult conversation about what is it you're really there for, what is your purpose, what is your core business. Collaborations and partnerships, I know Steve's going to talk a lot more about that, so I won't go into that too much, but you know, there is a real opportunity out there, as I say, to look at other organisations in local areas and say, you know what, they're really good at this, let's let them do it, let's start commissioning some services and get the best value out of it, let's work with others, see how they do it and see if we can do something together. And you know, there's that last, would we dare to share services? We're a bit pro-coup, aren't we, in this sector? It's like, ooh, I'm not going to talk to you. But what's happening at the moment, and we all know it, is merger is a reality, and we're in the midst of those talks, and I know many others are either early stages or, you know, thinking that way. It's an inevitable thing. So we're going to have to talk to each other anyway. And I think there's some real opportunities there we haven't even started to explore yet. So there's a whole future in that. So what have we learned? For me, some real ramblings of my experience. Start at the top with your transformation. Make sure that your vision is aligned to where you're going. Your sponsor is on board. Be clear about what you're trying to achieve, your rationale for change, the outcomes you want. Always check regularly your courage, your capacity, your capability. For us, you know, I think it's no secret we've had real difficulties with our repairs and maintenance service. We had the HCA come into us. That's a real diversion of your time and energy and all of that stuff when you've got a transformation program with a plan and milestones you're trying to deliver as well. It's a real challenge. A merger can be a little distraction when you're trying to do what you're doing. All of these things are reality though, and of course the regulation changes actually then say, do you know what, we've got to speed this up now. We wanted to slow down because we had these other priorities. Now we want to accelerate. Are you ready? So courage and capacity, you've got to just check, and capability all the time. I think I've made the point about communicate. Just got to do that. I just throw this in, bring your risk log to life. Who loves risk logs, okay? They shouldn't be that thing that we all fear and fill in at the last minute just before the meeting just to make sure we've done our updates. Actually, they've got to be a living, breathing document in this environment, and we've got to make those real for the people around us, because they actually make the difference with your decision making. And that's the key thing about risk log. That's your path to your decisions, so it should be real. Got to take our people on the journey, and it's in the sector, it's everyone around working together, and it's our internal teams, leadership, and those on the ground as well. And just lastly, be realistic about your timetable. And change that goes on, we say for more than 2 years you'll get change fatigue. People get fed up with it. And what do? We reinvent and create a new program and go, oh, we're starting again. You know, we've all been there. You know, we've got to be really conscious about that start and end. When does it end? What's the outcome? What are we going to deliver? But don't forget to celebrate some milestones along the way, because it's the other thing we're not very good at. Actually, we do a lot of great stuff and we do it really well. We don't talk about it very much, we're too scared. So we've got to celebrate success as well. I'll be quiet now. Questions?
Anybody got any questions for Martin?
How's the merger going?
How is it going? I can't answer that. Yeah, so obviously still really early stages in terms of talks. The key thing really is about, does the numbers stack up? Does the business case stack up? And it was stacking up quite nicely, and then the regulation changed and went, oh, we better go back to those plans and have another look. So we're at that position to say, when you put 2 and 2 together, actually can you make 5 or 6? Because if you just make 4, there's no point in doing it. And for us, it's really about that, the ability to build houses. Can we really prove to this government, to this regime, that we can build a lot of houses if we're a bigger organisation? So that's really our focus, is does the real business case stack up for us to make more out of the single organisation? The reality is at the moment we're operating like 2 organisations. We've got our own transformation programs, our own IT deliveries. We're talking all the time, but we're not actually moving away from that, because it's so important that we keep on task for us both being successful regardless of that outcome. So the timing of that will be interesting over the next 6 months.
Just on that, I was just going to say, I know we've still got a few months to go, but you know, April, new financial year and everything. Are you going to do a budget as though you were merging and then separate budgets, like separate organisations?
Yeah, both.
How is that?
No.
Yeah.
So the reality is we have to budget as if we're here for now as we are. And we have to demonstrate that. We have to demonstrate that to the HCA, that we're financially viable and going to be strong going forward. We have to look forward to those building schemes that we're a part of. So, you know, our pipeline for the future. We need the rationale for our staff. We can't suddenly start making the organisation lean if we go, by the way, don't worry because we've got a merger around the corner. You know, we realistically are planning as a single organisation. But of course we're having the talks and we're looking at the numbers and saying, what would be the difference in our headroom? What would we change if we get to that point? We may have a better indication January through April, but at the moment we budget as a single organisation.
So, question in terms of the future, obviously things in terms of the landscape are going to look quite different.
Yeah.
We obviously have an objective view over the market and we talk to a lot of clients and a lot of them are now starting to sound very commercialised.
Yes.
Very, how can we generate revenue? And I've recruited into the sector for 10, 12 years, so it's quite a shift in terms of attitude. I grew up on a council estate. My mum bought a house from the Right to Buy scheme, so I got an almost passion for it.
Sure.
And I almost see a move away from that with a lot of the organisations we're working with. Where do you see the future?
I think it's our biggest challenge. What is our social purpose? What are we here to do? And I think that's the question we've all got to ask ourselves. If we do what we always did, we'll get what we always got, and that wasn't good enough, you know. And government said that's not good enough. And as I said, genuinely we're not popular, and so we've got to do something that proves ourselves. The first thing we've got to do is get our costs down. I think, you know, the days of sitting with huge surpluses and things like that are really starting to move away. I think there's so much passion in the sector, genuinely, and people I meet, and I think even at our balls, the reason some people come to work is because they really believe in the purpose. So we have to find a way to protect that. Go on, Pat.
Have you ever considered deregistration? And if you did, what do you think the challenges would be, apart from paying back all of the money you've had from the HCA?
No, we haven't.
Do you think that's something that...
Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting one, but I mean, what I would say is it's like, with all of these things, whenever crisis comes, that's when creation comes, you know. And it is about us being on the front foot and being innovative and being creative and saying, actually, we don't have to do things like this anymore. But we need to think differently now. Whether that's a possibility or there's other solutions out there, but I'm pretty certain it's like people in this room that will come together and do it because we'll be forced to, like never before. And I don't think the pressure's going to ease up either. I think it's only going to get tougher. So we've got to really be creative with it. So yeah, I don't think we should stick with the norm, that's for sure. Sorry.
What approach did you use for your transformation? Did you get external consultants to come in and advise you on your way, or did you use internal staff?
Yeah, we did. So I think Circle's previous history with trying to make change happen and things have been, like many organisations that I know I've been in, that to say we played at it is a bit unfair, but you know where I mean, where you don't make the investment, you try and wrap it onto people's day jobs, but you expect lots and it rolls on and you never really finish anything. That was their previous experience. So they took a really big strategic decision to say, we're going to go out to the market and we're going to get some really key help. We partnership with PwC. So we got them in, they helped us with our business case. And from that business case, they then went on and helped us implement. So we still work with them now. Yeah.
So you haven't got any internal capacity?
Yes, we have. It's over and above the internal capacity because there's so much more we're doing with our technology and like many of us, we've still got things we have to do with our existing systems, our existing teams, our existing processes, particularly around technology. We got most of our help around that. We had a little bit of help around org design. Things like we've got 9 contact centres, we're moving to a single contact centre, and how does that work with CRM and things like that. So we've got expertise in certain areas. What I would say about using Big Four or any of the big organisations is there's lots of different ways to contract with them, and again, really push that because we can be really strong on risk and reward, we can be really strong on delivery only, outcome focus, you know. We only pay what they deliver, not what they do. Okay, and it's a very different way of working and so there's very little that on a fixed cost basis month by month they have to do something for us or produce an output or we'll have a risk of reward type thing. If you get this amount of benefit, we'll pay you this much. So there are ways to contract with these organisations, not to make it cheaper, but to get good value for money. Yeah.
How did you manage the resistance to change? Because you made quite a few significant changes.
Yeah. I don't know that you ever do 100%, if I'm totally honest. You will always find those people that just don't want to come with you for whatever reason. But what we do is work really hard to keep people on the journey. So one of the things, really simple things like a change champion network. So we get staff on the ground to apply to be a change champion. We give them training, we take them away, but it's completely voluntary. They just work in their job, but we give them things first so they're prepared, so that they can talk to the people on their floor, in their teams, in their offices. So they get a focal point locally in every office. We ended up with over 200 change champions in our network. Things like that. So we actually had probably 4 or 5 change managers, but then we've got 200 people out there. We can just throw something out and they'll do it. They're great because they become things like, they'll test systems for us. They really want to do something. They're really keen to get involved. And I say it's just a voluntary piece. It might cost them 2 hours a week, but they're also the information piece, and people like that I'll be the one who knows, so you can come talk to me. So there's ways of selling that and making it work. It really can help.
What are the key skills and job roles that you see as part of the transformation?
So I am an advocate of change people as opposed to project people. I've run project offices and you know, highly skilled project managers and program managers, but they're not very good with people. IT people, you know, they should be locked in a darkened room, and you know. But you understand what I mean. So no, that was a bit flippant.
I've had brilliant project managers who are really good people.
They are.
Prince 2 qualification, no guide to project management ability at all.
You're saying a bit argumentative.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, I genuinely believe that you need that holistic skill set. Those people that can understand and empathise and listen and talk to people, but they do need the organisational skills. They do need to fill in the risk logs and then, you know, all of the other things they need to do. So it is a real mix. So we sort of head towards change people that we can train in project management, rather than strong project managers that we have to try and change their culture. And I guess that's probably what it is. We found some people coming from the business and working on transformation programs work really well and really blossom. Other people just don't get it. It's like, no, this is too uncertain. I can't handle it. And you know, just that. When I go to my office, I sit next to this person, I do these things, and then I go home. Now you're asking me to kind of, you know, just run around and do things. I can't handle that. So it really is about working with individuals and see what suits. And a lot of pragmatism is needed because things change.
Have you got any other questions?
You mentioned a lot about IT, and you mentioned things. How about business process, and how important is actually in a transformation program is looking at your processes and changing those, as well as everything else, the people, the culture, and the IT?
Yeah, so the IT is really just the tool at the end. So I focused on it because it's such a massive shift in terms of the digital, but we started with, for example, our customer journeys. That's where we started. What does our customer want, and what's the journey for them? We bought the IT after we understood that. So that is really the first piece, and I think the culture behind it, all of those things, you've got to start at that piece, and that's why we did agile working first, trying to start to think about the change of culture for staff before we ask them to do other things.
Do your project managers work in an agile way as well?
Yeah.
You said agile, but I've taken agile in this instance to be the agility of people not to sit at one desk, work from home, work remotely, work with customers.
That's agile, the methodology. Yeah. No, so we use agile, the methodology. Sorry, it's our terminology because they didn't like hot desking and other things. So we use that where we in time box pieces and things like that in some environments, not all of them. No. So, and I think again that's where that pragmatism comes in, not having a single model. We found and I'm really strong on change management and process and things like that. But it's very easy to get bureaucratic, and sometimes with the pace of change you just need to be a lot more flexible, and we've had to do that. Sorry, I'm going on now, aren't I?
No, it's fine. Do you have any more questions for Martin?
Are you around later?
Of course, yeah. I will be. Yeah. Yeah.